Hey folks, welcome back to Only Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about Making History by K.J. Parker. This is a cheeky, bite-sized Parker novella that does everything that we love about K.J. Parker, condensed down into a very short story. Novella. But everything that makes his full-length novels such fun to read is here. Is captured perfectly here. So if honestly, if you wanted to know if K.J. Parker is right for you, I don't think you could pick a better starting place than this novella. Anyway, it's a very solid way to find out. Anyway, what is Making History about? So, being a warmongering dictator can be very hard when you don't have an excuse to actually wage war. Thankfully, that's a problem easily fixed with the right amount of propaganda, which is how the senior academics at the University of LA find themselves under the literal and proverbial sword, given the mission to fabricate a history, to basically enrage the unwashed masses into supporting a war, an unjustified war. The problem is that as the plan begins to get executed to fabricate this history, it begins to work a little too well. So, like I said, everything I like about the K.J. Parker novel so far, it's here in bite size. So, what do I mean by that? We have the erudite kind of introspection on some very specific topics. We have an oddball plot. We have characters who on paper seem like tropes, but they behave like anything but, given the context of the story and just the imagination of K.J. Parker with how he uses these characters to get up to some shenanigans, to put it mildly. And of course, the ending, because K.J. Parker books never end the way that you expect. Like, everything is here. Everything that makes his books so interesting to read, let's put it, it's captured here. So that's why I think like this is a really good place to kind of test if you want to know if K.J. Parker is right for you. Anyway, so what does he get into in this book? So obviously from the title, it shouldn't be any surprise that history is a big one that he really kind of pokes the bear on when it comes to this book, because like we have this book kind of deals with like the perceived infallibility of history. Like, we have all these academics and historians also who tell us that this is the way things were, and then of course, because everyone needs to live, someone will dive in, do some deep high level research and come up with some new fact or whatever, or whatever it is they'll come up with, and they'll come and put forth this new thesis or this new idea or this new hypothesis, whatever you want to call it, and change our understanding of history essentially. And then we're just kind of expected to accept that, okay, that's no longer how it was, this is how it is now, and we're just kind of expected to go along with it. So like, as much as we consider history to be infallible, okay, it's history, it couldn't have changed, right? Our understanding of it is essentially extremely fluid, and when you really stop and think about it, it's basically trust me bro. That's what it boils down to. We basically just have a bunch of people who we're told to believe that we're told to believe that because of whatever qualification they have, like they're an authority or whatever, and they just say this thing, and we're just told like, and we're just supposed to trust them. It's literally trust me bro on an industrial scale. So that was kind of funny to read the way that he kind of portrays that in this novella. And one of the pillars of how he goes about doing that is linguistics, because obviously language is a very fluid thing, and you see that from generation to generation. Like, every generation has its own slang and verbiage, whatever you want to call it, and that's why new words get added to the dictionary every year, for example, that kind of thing. So like, this book kind of plays with the way that linguistics and language changes to meet the demands of society, and we even get into like the shaky structure of what just like the shaky idea of what a word even means, like context, intonation, usage, and these kind of things, like how one word can mean some completely different things, that kind of stuff. So he has quite a bit of fun playing with that in here, and if you want to have an idea of what I mean, like how like context and intonation can can change how a word is perceived. Essentially, just listen to a random Eminem song. Like that guy could rhyme anything, and it's not because the words themselves rhyme; it's the way that he uses them. So, yeah. Anyway, I don't know how I managed to get onto Eminem here, but yeah, that's the other kind of thing that he plays a lot within his book, linguistics. So, all that being said, setting all that aside, we do have a very standard class of characters when it comes to KJ Parker, in that like they're relatively average people who were thrown into this extreme situation given when compared to their daily lives, and they either have to rise to the occasion or fail. And where they actually end up falling is somewhere they're either hyper competent at what they do, or they're just barely competent enough to get by at best. And that's kind of what he that's kind of where he where most of these characters fall for the most part. And then we have the as is typical with him, like we have characters who start off life as tropes, but they, because of their motivations and their ideal and their ideologies and their morals and these kind of things, they behave like anything but. And that's something that we see kind of touched on lightly throughout the novella in ways that allow these characters to behave in ways that you don't expect. So yeah, and as is typical with KJ Parker characters, like things like common sense and a very fluid notion of what's good versus evil, or what's good versus bad, I should say, is all part and parcel for it. So yeah, and then of course we have some characters who decide to rise to the occasion, and some who decide to do anything but, and everywhere in between. So yeah. And how can I finish this without talking about the plot? Because of course, this is a typical KJ Parker story in that it starts as one thing, and then it just takes a weird twist, and it just goes down a rabbit hole that seems very, very, very improbable, but somehow works. And then we end in a place that is just entertaining to read, to put it mildly. Like I said, it very much mirrors how his novels work, and it was fun. It was fun to see how this particular story ended in many ways. So all in all, this novella is exactly what you get, what I wanted, which is a KJ Parker story, just in a very digestible manner, we can say. Like I think it's fairly short. I don't think it exceeded like 100 pages, or not by much at least. So yeah, that's kind of my take on making history. I'm just rambling at this point, so I'll wrap it up. If you made this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.